So this is an idea I'm actually very excited about because I think a lot of the details in this game may be something that we all notice, but we don't maybe think to highlight or think more at like a surface level. But games like these, like indie games and indie games especially, are just there's so many of these. One thing I love about indie games is just the fact that everybody is so close to the kind of the nucleus of the project. You know, if you're working at EA or something, the very top of whoever's working on the game or whoever's part of the game, and the very bottom is just there's such a disconnect. And obviously the devs still do fantastic jobs in those games, making these games come to life and making these ideas come to life. But I just think it's so much cooler when everybody is like directly involved. I think Red Hook has, like, last I heard, it was like this before behavior probably acquisition, but there's like 25 to 30 employees. So like everybody is involved. Like you don't have some corporate overlord kind of running things. And I think it makes indie games like shine. And these little small details that I go off are really what kind of make it shine. So some of these are going to be things that we all know of. There's a couple of them there that we all know of. A couple of these that maybe something you haven't seen in a while. There's a couple of them that maybe you haven't completely noticed or haven't noticed in a while. I just want to highlight some stuff because of how great just indie games are when it comes to this. And I know there's a lot of, there's always going to be a lot of complaints about these games whenever, there's like a rework that comes out, right? There's a lot of people that get upset, or talking about the state of the game or whatever, about how it's, maybe not balanced or not fun or whatever, right? But so I kind of want to make a video to not to counteract that, but to show some positive aspects of this game too, because I think sometimes people can get caught up in kind of the uh complain not I don't want to say complaining, but the caught up in the criticism too much, and then they forget just how bit of a game like this is. So if you don't know who I am, uh I stream every day, twitch.tv/ManatArmHawk. I have like 3,400 hours in this game, I think, at this point. So obviously a lot of material in my head as I'm playing through, to kind of do these sort of things. Um, yeah, it's a video I'm really excited about. And what other way to tell a story than via PowerPoint? So we got 25 small details, Darkest Dungeon 2, that I love and I want to highlight. So number one, it's easy. I It's a fan favorite, an easy one to start off with. But man, the fact that this ugly ass Eldrich, half human, half cornucopia thing, the fact that it still has a sort of cuteness to it, and just a little banana on that. I think that that's actually so funny. Like obviously it's thrown in there as kind of a gag, but if you think about it, anything that's part X and part Y, part baby and part tentacle monster thing, it's going to have a little aspect of both. And just the fact that it has, some little cuteness, a little bit of cuteness to it that makes you take an extra second to think as you're fighting it. I think that's just I think it's great. And obviously it's so funny when it happens. It's just such a great voice clip. Just for a simple little thing. It's just such a great clip at kind of humanizing it, I guess, kind of as much as you can. So, number two, we have the cherub scream. So, the sound effect, one of the sound effects that plays the cherubs when you kill it, is a fantastic find. Whoever found this, listen to this. That is such an iconic scream. It's like a guttural. I don't even know. I don't know what baby made that noise, but whatever baby made that noise, like that's just an iconic scream. I'll play it again. It's just such a. I don't know how else to word it. And funny story. So I'm watching, I believe it was Dan's Gaming. So I'm watching Dan's Gaming, right? So I assume that is such a good voice clip. I assume it has somebody at Red Hook have to have found that, or somebody at Power Up Audio that works with Red Hook or whatever. So I'm falling asleep watching Dan's Gaming or whatever play the Dead Space remake, which, in hindsight probably shouldn't be falling asleep watching people play Dead Space. But that scream, its own version, that scream is in the Dead Space remake. It's one of the screams apparently when you hit the baby ear, which I'll play. And so I'm falling asleep, right? I'm just kind of like, listening to Dan's Gaming or whatever in the background. And I hear this and I'm like, I thought that was a Darkest Dungeon 2 sound, but no, it's I guess it's like a stock sound. But either way, hearing it in another game was so weird. So it's a little Easter egg in Dead Space. So like you shoot the baby and So that one has a little bit more of a, like, there's a little bit of like filters or editing or whatever you want to say to it. But that one, that confused me so much hearing it in another game. But I understand why it's in another game. It's because it's a fantastic baby scream. It really is. It's just such a, just guttural, I guess. So number 3 is the crabs in the shroud, because these guys, when you stop up, when you're driving around and you get to this kind of like sand embankment, these little crabs kind of dancing around and popping in and out of the sound. And the reason, or into the sand. One reason I like this is because I think in you see with the Kingdom's Day events too, um, where it's just kind of a reminder that there's like a world going on around everything that's going on in just a small little way. Like these little crabs, you know, if you get into it, these little crabs are just kind of hanging out. They don't seem to be eldritchy in any way. They're just kind of hanging out, just kind of a normal ecosystem. And it's kind of the same with Kingdoms when you have, you know, War Master Sigurd or whatever, when you're reading the text events, the text of the day events. Like there's another world kind of going on. And I like the idea that some background artist was kind of like, you know what, we're just going to add these crabs and we're going to have them, you know, kind of walk around and pop in and out of the sand. I think it's just kind of a cool sort of like background, um, you know, animation, whatever you want to call it, that shows there's a lot going on in this in this universe that isn't, maybe that is relatively normal, or what we would say is relatively normal. I just think it's a nice little touch to sort of the background of things. So I like them. So next we have Hand of Light and Chaotic Offering. So what I mean by this, Hand of Light, the Vestal skill, Chaotic Offering, the Occultist skill. So they appear, I assume this is intentional, they appear to be mirrors of each other, which I think is really cool. So you look, obviously it still has, it's the same hand, type of hand, whatever you want to call it. You know, they're both a left hand right there. So you see you got the lighting back here. Obviously the lighting on the Vestal here on the left is light, and is a little more purpley because it's more shamblery. So I had never really noticed that. A friend of the stream and also streamer McSwelton actually pointed this out on accident once by showing them kind of side to side. I just never thought about it. And it makes sense, right? Because this Vestal is the angelic, you know, religious side of things, and then the occultist is probably leaning to a little more towards occultist and kind of like Satanism kind of thing. And I just think it's a nice little touch. And Chaotic Offering wasn't in the first game, so I like the idea that somebody was like, well, what if we had basically like, you know, a devil version of Hand of Light, and had that be, you know, it's got the aspect of Chaotic Offering, how it's kind of you're sacrificing health, right? So it's a little bit of sacrifice. But I just thought that was a cool little mirror, and it's one of those things I just hadn't really realized, but I thought it was a cool little kind of yin and yang aspect. So next up, we have the ManatArm Sad Shield. So this is something that I talk about a lot on my stream, that got brought up at some point. I assume this wasn't intentional, but there's a sad face on the ManatArm Shield. If you look at it here, if you can see it, if you can't see it, that's what it looks like right here. I assume probably what it is they just kind of mirrored the sides, but it's funny, especially, you know, right here. This turns into kind of a frown, and then we have the eye, and then we have an eye. So I think that's really funny. Oh, I assume it's not intentional. I think it's especially funny when you play him in Sergeant and you put him in rank 4, because you can see it all the time. It doesn't ever get really blocked by any other heroes. So I love the idea that the ManatArm Shield is just sad, just frowning all the time, probably because it's blocking everything. But I like the idea that it's just kind of a sad shield. The Eldritch abomination of the universe is this poor ManatArm Shield having to deal with the ManatArm's cowardice and garbage all the time. I don't know if this is intentional. I don't know if this is even anybody at Red Hook's even ever noticed this, but I love it, and I hope it stays like that. And I like his other shields too, but man, do I like using this base one because it's funny. So next up, the Aniquarian and the Bounty Hunter. So I know everybody has their opinions on Aniquarian and Bounty Hunter not being playable in this game. Obviously, Bounty Hunter's playable in Kingdoms now, but I mean in Confessions, not having to be full time. I actually like the two of these. Admittedly, I'm more of a thematic, you know, lore kind of person. Like I do really like. I like that the Aniquarian, you know, prioritizes money and relics and baubles and collectibles so much that she just kind of goes on her own thing. Um, you know, I'm sure it's probably they were like, well, how do we fit her in the game? Like, what if we just make her an enemy, right? I know it's probably not some like super deep explanation behind it, but I think it does make sense. And I understand if, you know, anybody from that really loved the Bounty Hunter, Aniquarian, and DD1, and they weren't super happy with this change. I totally get it. But I think it's super cool. Like, you're just like, oh hey, it's Aniquarian again. And it makes sense. And I think they did such a fantastic job with her also of making her stay roughly the same sort of hero, obviously as an enemy now, without being too much, because she is such a just like squirrely, you know, she has other people fight for her and she dodges a lot. She just is so annoying, but not in a particularly bad way. She's just, you know, like a you know, you go to swat a fly and the fly flies away and you just barely miss it. And then you go to swap it again and it just kind of it keeps flying away. She's just so all over the place that I think they did a really good job keeping her just like annoying. Because by the end of the fight, you just want to like get me out of here. You know, it's so annoying. But I think they did such a good job with her. Unless she spams festering vapors, in which case I hate her. And bounty hunter also, I like again. I know there's a lot of people that are upset that they can't play the bounty hunter in this game, at least in confessions, full time. But I think it does. I kind of like the path they did of like, and also with the names also that each bounty hunter you get is a little bit is different than the last. There's not just one bounty hunter. There's a lot of them. I would obviously love to see a full lore and everything of this game of him in this game also. But I really like what they did. The fact that you can get him for one region and he's just so powerful. He can pretty much do everything. Um, I think that's really cool. And admittedly, I was never a huge bounty hunter player in DD1. So obviously, if it was my favorite hero, I'd be pretty annoyed coming into this game knowing you can't play it. But I think it does make sense that he kind of, you know, he follows the money, kind of similar to the Aniquarian. Like, you got to pay him if you want to bring him along. I think it's pretty cool. Again, I understand maybe people don't like them both, but I love what they did with them. I think it's super cool. But again, I'm somebody that's real deep into kind of like lore and thematicism and like what's going on kind of with the rest of the world. Next, we have a particular Vavant Bark, which I'm sure you guys have seen at the Oasis. And shout out to me for actually getting with the Vestal, who feels like the most lore friendly based on of it. But this is a hilarious Bark. Like, let's shed these layers and have a night to remember. And everybody gets stressed, by the way, so or a stress heal. So everybody agrees. You get to the Oasis and you're like, all right, we're gonna have a little party. Yeah, a little party. I think it's a super funny. I think it's a super funny Bark personally, and the fact that it stress heals everybody, so it works out for everybody. Next up, we're gonna have some animations kind of coming up here. This animation has to do with the dinner cart because I think this is really funny. Because you know, if you haven't looked super closely at the dinner cart, this whole thing is one man. You know, it's you've got the man right here, and then appear to what be his gut. Got another mouth, got some udders, and has this little like appendage right here. So this is all one being. If you've never looked super closely at the dinner cart, the fetter in general is disgusting, but it's so well done. So excoriate, and I think there's one other, but basically the animation, this animation right here. So the little appendage grabs the cleaver and then it throws it to the guy in the back like it's an alley oop, and the guy just catches it and just slams it in. I think that's so funny. That's such like a flashy little teamwork kind of cleaver throwing thing there. It's so gross. It is so gross, but I really like that animation just because it's like it's got personality to it. It's got some uniqueness to it. They work together because they're, I guess, one being, and there's cleavers coming out of them, and it's so gross. But God, I can't help it. I love it. It's just a flashy little thing. Next, number 9. So the hero Bark. So kind of alongside Bon Vivant. There are way more Barks in this game, as in like lines in general, than you think, and I'm gonna prove it to you. So right here, if you go into the notepad that says Barks Combat, keep in mind also, a lot of these Barks, not all of them, there's some generic Barks, but most of the Barks, I would argue, are linked to heroes themselves. So not only is there this many Barks in the entire game, but most of them, I don't know what number, 70, 80%, have to be within the personality of the character also. So just imagine the sheer numbers of these Barks that you would have to write, and then also keep them within the bounds of the character. So just right here, just for combat barks, you have 893. And I made sure in this notepad, by the way, if there was any blank lines, I took out the blank lines just to get the actual line value. These is actually how many combat barks there are. There's 893. If you go into the item barks, so you're talking about like the herb bundle, etc., etc., 915. Keep in mind they have to add more for every DLC that comes in also. So you have 893 barks for combat. You have 915 for items. For traveling, you have 837 barks. While you're driving, you have another 192, kind of on the low end, but still sort of a lot. I tried to find the notepads with the most. So you have 192 right there. So for curios, for the academic studies, you have 548. A lot of these, as you can see right here, are based on quirks. So those ones don't necessarily have to be within the bounds of the hero, but they do have to be within the bounds of the quirk itself. But either way, you can't just be throwing down lines or whatever. You got to think about it. So we have 548 right there, and then right here in the DLC on itself, 160. So this is just, they had to come out with 160 for Crusader and Duelist to have about the calming incense, the candles and chocolate, the armor repair kit, blah, blah, blah. So you have to continually add more into this also. Lord knows how many for kingdoms. So how many? This is not even all of them, by the way. This is definitely not all of them. These are just like the biggest ones that I could find, at least based on the research that I did. Obviously, I made sure I got like the big ones. So the total, 3,545 barks just in those 6 that I showed. Oh, so over 3,500 barks, lines that they have to come up with. Yes, a lot of them are like one-liners or whatever, but to have basically write what might as well be like a small book of of hero barks for every hero is insane. And that's not even all of them. It could be twice as much. That it could be 3 times that. I don't know. Probably not 3 times that, but there's a lot more than that, and they have to continually kind of add stuff. So that is an incredible amount of barks. I know they probably write it maybe like a few at a time. Can you imagine having to sit down? Imagine if you had to sit this down in once and write 3,500 plus barks to keep it within the best kind of lore that you can. I mean, it's just an insane undertaking when you look at the whole body of work, no pun intended, I guess, together of just barks in this game, just having these lines. It's just is an insane number. It's just the volume they've had to add in the 3 years or whatever it is that this game has been been being worked on. Next, Leper's love for seashells. So I kind of like this. So he has the uncommon seashells, one of his hero trinkets, and then he also has his signature in item of seashells. I kind of like this. I think this is pretty cool. I know I'm assuming the answer would be something like it's symbolic. Leper loves the simple things because he knows he's on his way out. But I just think that that's cool. Just he's like, the leper is just like he likes seashells. I don't know if there's more to it. I doubt there is, other than just kind of the symbolicness. But I kind of like the leper just have seashells. Like, we all have stuff that we just sort of collect, and everybody's got their own the other, like, trinkets that that people have, or the in items that people have. Like, it's like it makes sense. So you have like that the totem signature in item for like a cultist, right? It makes sense within their lore and within their shrines. Like, for the cultist has the scalded skull, right? Because of the way that his lore played out. But Leper, really, there's a few of them, but Leper's really the main one, or one of the few that just kind of like simple items. Like, as far as we know, there was nothing. As far as I know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so, but as far as I know, there was nothing seashell based in any of his lore or anything like that. He just kind of just likes seashells, and I think that's cool. I think it kind of humanizes him. Obviously, Leper is the most the hero that they try to, I guess, sort of like humanize the most, because he's the one of them that's just not an awful person. But I think it's just a little thing, but I think it's cool. I think it's cool that the leper would see a nice seashell and he would just be like, damn, I like seashells. I like that. So, number 11. Another leper one. So it's Leper and the Light. So this is another one where I'm sure a lot of people know if they've played through the game. Maybe you haven't noticed, maybe you haven't, whatever. So everybody, when you get their shrine portraits, right? Everybody is ashamed of their past in some way. So you see this symbolism, I guess, of them kind of looking away from the light. They're kind of shining away from the light. They're looking away from it. because they're ashamed of either what has happened in their life or of what they've done. And then you have the leper. It's like, I don't really care. And I think that's cool. I think that adds, and that goes along with, it's similar to the flagellant one too, where his light is obviously green because of his blight and everything. But I think it just, when you look at these again, you're just like, damn, the leper is so cool because he just kind of like, he got leprosy trying to be a normal citizen with his people, and then he tried to get assassinated, and then he was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just kill you then. And he just kind of like doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, whatever. And then he leaves the kingdom. And I think it's more implied that he's the one that left, not that he was like exiled. He's the one that just kind of left on his own. So he's just kind of like a good dude. And I think that that's pretty cool that him and the flagellant are the only ones that have a different interaction kind of with the light. And I think it adds some uniqueness to them. The flagellant one obviously is there just by the way that he looks. But the leper looking away from the light, I think that's really cool. So I'm going to have a couple more animations that I think are really cool. So another one we have here is Flint Strike. So this is actually, I think this is my favorite enemy animation in the game, but it's the front line on the fire mouth here. So you don't see it very often. Like, I wish it was one that you would see more. I mean, it's okay, but this is such a good animation. Look at this. That is so cool. Look at the little X that it makes right there. Like, that's so cool. Just having a couple fire. I don't even know what the hell it is that they're using, but just to create this like X, like that's super cool. That's some like lightsaber kind of shit. And it's just like a frontline ability. Like some of the other frontline abilities for people that aren't in the front line are like relatively simple, but this one is just like randomly just really cool. It's one of my favorite ones. I love it. It looks awesome. The way that they animated it and everything. It's a super good one. Another fire-related one is with the Immolatist, with the Sprawl, which is Firefly. And you'll see, so Firefly does this really cool thing where you can see the outline of the hero's skull that they hit, which I have to imagine is kind of hard to do considering everybody is like different heights and stuff. But it's like, it's a cartoon. It's a throwback to old like cartoons and stuff, Bugs Bunny or whatever, where something would be so hot it would it would just burn the skin off of their face. So it's kind of like a callback to that. It's not even just on the crit. It just looks extra cool with the crit. But like that's just a great animation. I can't imagine it would be super easy to do just because where everybody's skull is. It's probably gonna be a little inaccurate. That'd be a little annoying. But I think that's just awesome. One more time without me pausing it. It's just such a cool. It's just such a good animation, and it really does sell the fact that is her, like, or one of her at least, like, just high damage abilities, like her main abilities. And she just absolutely just melts your heroes. I think it's an awesome animation. Now, next up, you have the disgustingness that is the lady. Okay, so the lady, I'm gonna tell you right now, legitimately one of my least favorite enemies to go against. Extremely frustrating, super good at whatever rank. Her animations are so funny because they are so polite despite her being, disgusting. So look really closely. So I'm going to show 3 of our animations off. Look really closely. So especially, I mean, to this mouth down here. I'll be able to pause it, but so we have, this one's not too bad. I mean, obviously you got the tongue and everything. It's pretty damn gross, but it's mostly this part that happens right here. Watch again. We're just, look how gross the second mouth gets. Look at, you get the, like, it's like, I guess like saliva, and it's just bouncing off, and like she's up here chomping and kind of looking at it. It's just a disgust. This whole area sucks. It's just so gross. Just pure gross. It's just gross. And then we have the next one here, which I think it's funny. This is like almost the opposite of the first one. This one is just like very gross and kind of unpolite. Look how polite that she is after this. Look at this. So this appendage for the second mouth takes the napkin, wipes its mouth, and look, you see the little shine too. Look at that. Like, these teeth are perfect. Look at that. And then just hands it off again. Look at this. I'll watch it full speed this time. Look at this. Look how gross this is. Yeah, gross that, but it's like polite at the same time. Like the lady is like very polite. Look how gross that is. Like you have this, it's kind of like the baby where you have this disgustingness and you have the cuteness, and then you have this disgusting with the lady, you have this disgustingness, but then the politeness at the same time. And then look at this animation. So Bilious Whale is one of them that it does on. So the AoE ability, the fucking that does the fucking curtsy, like it does a little curtsy, like it's a little bow. How disgusting is that? But also it's like very polite. It's like kind of cute. Look at that. She's so proud of herself. That is so gross. I mean, this one's not really as gross, but it's like kind of gross. I don't know. It's just weird. This whole little appendage thing does like a bow kind of thing. Ah, whoever came up with these ideas for these animations is a sick human being, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. I really mean that in the highest complimentary way possible. Oh, she is so gross. But God, her animations are so good. I hate. It's a shame that I dislike her so much because how frustrating she is. Her high crit chance and her Billy's wail and her moving around and all the rest of her bullshit that she has. But God, her animations in particular are just so good. It just nails this like kind of Southern belle, but also Eldrich. Just gross. Number 15, we have the Bagman. I love the Bagman. This is from the DLC in the Catacombs. This isn't like spoilers or anything. This is just an enemy. He's not like a boss or anything. But I think this is hilarious. I don't know who came up with this, but the dude, he appears to just be a regular dude, and he's just in the catacombs. And I don't know, is that his friend? Did his friend die? I don't know. I'd play a goddamn game. Darkest Dungeon 3 based on the Bagman, I would play, and then see him just kind of like in his animations. What's the story here? Why is his friend at what point is your friend like a slime and you're like, I'll carry you on your shoulder, bro, and you're gonna be like a little cannon. But in it's like the new version of like, would you love me if I was a worm? Like, would you carry me on your shoulder all day if I was a slime ball with no appendages? It just it's just such like an out of left field. Whoever was like, yeah, what if he just like had his homie on his shoulder and just like carried him around and just shot him around or slap with him, whatever. It's just such an unhinged enemy in a world of unhinged enemies, and I love it. It's one of my favorite enemies just because it's so stupid, but it makes so much sense at the same time. And again, this appears to be like some regular dude, but I want this guy's backstory. How did he end up in the catacombs? Was he friends with this guy before? What do they have to talk about? There's just a lot of questions. So number 16 here we have with the I mean, this is slight spoilers, but Kingdoms has been out for like 6 months at this point. This isn't a boss or anything, it's just an enemy. But look at where the infection on the Rockclaw kind of is. So obviously you see, you know, it's on the forearms and everything, but more specifically, it being centered around the heart, whatever this infection is, whatever, you know, advanced food poisoning or whatever. If this was a real thing that kind of made people, you know, like zombies, I guess, kind of like zombies, but like furries, it would make sense that the infection is mainly centered around the heart because obviously that's where the blood gets pumped everywhere. So it's just one of those things where you're like, they obviously spent some time kind of thinking about it, and you're like, okay, well, obviously he has to look infected, but what do we? He just they it's just one of those things that they took a little bit of time. It's not like they had some warts or whatever, and they're like, all right, put it here, put it here, put it here. Like they thought about it, and it's okay, if this infection was real, where would these, you know, things kind of be? And one of them having centered around the heart here kind of makes sense because you have, you know, it appears to be, or like it would spread even more, and you can see, you know, the veins being highlighted and everything. Another cool thing that's kind of cool about the Rockclaw is the eyes blink interdependently. But I think it just kind of makes sense, and it's another thing that they kind of looked at and were like, okay, again, if this, you know, infection was real, how would it manifest in a scenario like this? And I think it being, I'm no expert by any means, but I think it being around the heart kind of makes sense. Next up, we have the Cabin Boy. So the Cabin Boy, just sort of in general, but look at the art really closely of this Cabin Boy here. So obviously you have right up here. Look at it really close. Look at the eye. The eye is like a big alien thing. It's got like a big head like babies do. Whatever's going on here with this like leg. Look how just gross this is. And it's just in this, you know, Sandy Cheeks-esque bubble here, and look at the anime when it's just sliding around. Look how gross that is. Just big dumb eye, and it's big dumb, like it's moving its hand around, whatever these feet is, and it's just wiggling around. Look how gross this is. Also, it's kind of cute, but just like a baby and just like in an incubator, it's just sort of wiggling around in like a weird way. Who's even controlling the wiggling? Is it or is the wiggling another thing? Just such a gross enemy. DD2 loves its babies. Man, do they nail just how gross these things are. This like half human, half, I don't know. Lord knows what they were doing with this. This is another one I'd love to hear the story about. And then obviously it grows into whatever, but it's just how gross that is. Ugh. Okay. Next up, we have Thrown Dagger. So this one specifically is going to be the sound of Thrown Dagger. The sound of Thrown Dagger when it misses. If you want to turn the volume up, or if you have headphones or whatever, it sounds like, listen to Thrown Dagger when it misses. This might be something you guys have noticed before, but it sounds like, with the audio mixing or the way that they recorded that sound or whatever the sound came from, that thing sounds like it launches. Like that thing is gone. Like Audrey did not throw that to like land. She threw that to go through the enemy, and it just goes. Lord knows how it goes. Listen to it. You can hear it get like further away, like woo, you know, and it kind of trails off. And it's got that like almost like Nerf football was woo woo woo, you know, whatever the name of that sound is. It's such a good sound. It's like she just launches the thing. It adds so much, and stuff like this, like sound effects and stuff like that add just an extra little oomph to abilities. It's something that not a lot of people notice, and if they do, they don't. Again, like with some of these details, people just don't think to, including me. Like you don't always sit and think like, damn, that's pretty cool. Let me listen to that again. You just don't have the time. You're just playing the game and everything. So that's why I think it's so cool that they're willing to put you know, extra effort into mixing these or whatever it may be to kind of get that sound. All right, number 19, another sound based. Again, I don't think this is a spoiler. This isn't a boss or anything. It's from Beastmen Kingdoms. The bell on this ability from the Tribe Caller is so good. It is such a good, like, satisfying church bell sound. Like, listen to this. And it's kind of like that again. I'm sure it's like a huge church bell. So it's kind of that much more comical that it's coming from this like small little bell. But it just gives you a little bit of oomph, a little bass to the sound to understand kind of like the enemies that you're going against, that they have this much power. It's just such a great sound too, and it sounds like it's like you're right next to it. Like it's one of those that there's so much. I would have to imagine the mixing. I guess I'm no expert by any means, but I'd have to imagine in the mixing they're doing a thing to make it sound like, you know, almost like you're in a room where it bounces off the walls. Like it almost doesn't even it almost doesn't even drop volume immediately. Like doom. Like I just think that's super cool the way it reverberates or whatever. Again, I'm no expert, but number 20 is No Escape. So that goes to the Bounty Hunter. No Escape specifically, if you've ever noticed, specifically hits the enemy in the skull no matter what. So if you look at like the Shaman here, like the Shaman being very, you know, relatively very low to the ground, No Escape specifically gets him just right in the head. Just gets him right in the head. And then you compare that to like the Bishop in the Tangle. It also gets him directly in the head. So the things that I had to do to get footage, by the way, you might notice, why do you only have 3 heroes? Somebody died along the way. I was trying to get this footage. Why is the Catacomb slime in the Tangle? I don't know. The code of my game is an objective disaster. Me trying to get this footage because the way I was like skipping around, jumping around, everybody's fatigued. I wasn't even actually fighting fights. It was a whole thing. But anyways, No Escape, hitting the Bishop in the head. You see right there, right in the skull. So it creates this funny kind of, if you look at them side to side, look at the difference. That's like half a screen difference between hitting the shaman and hitting the bishop. So it's just one of those, again, just one of those little things. Hurlbat does a similar thing, but it hits him kind of more in the gut. But it's a simple thing, and I can't imagine it's easy. Maybe it is, but it seems like it'd be hard because again, you got skulls, you got some huge fighter, you got like the pit fighter, the knight, the bishop, and you got small things. You got like cabin boy, you got shaman. I don't know if it's just as easy as hey, hit things in head, but I have to imagine when you're making the models because you have to designate the head. Sounds like it'd be difficult to do, but it creates this funny kind of side by side where sometimes it's like he's throwing it way up, and other times he's like almost skipping it across the ground to hit the enemy. But I think it's just such a nice little touch. If you have not heard the story of the Chirurgeon, so again they added at some point in the development cycle, I don't remember exactly, is April 23 when this was written, April 2023. They added the Chirurgeon's table. So the items were already in the game, the Chirurgeon items that we know now of the apron and the skull cap, but they actually made essentially I guess it would be called like a mini boss. The actual, the actual node, I guess, alongside the Chirurgeon. So if you would like to read more about it, it's a very good article by Andy Chalk for PC Gamer, where it's in the description. You should go read it. I think it's interesting. But the story of the Chirurgeon basically is that a Make-A-Wish kid, and I say kid, he was like 17. He wanted to work, and he had an idea about an enemy for DD2, and he wanted to work with the devs. His name is Sam, and he ended up doing that. So this is the Chirurgeon actually is through a partnership with Make-A-Wish and with Sam. Sam was able to work with the article talks about with Chris and Tyler who run Red Hook, I guess, and then Eric, who's also a I don't know what his title is, but one of the higher up kind of game devs there. And this basically was like Sam was like, hey, I have this idea of my understanding from this article, by the way, or at least is Sam basically was like, wait, hey, what if we had this enemy who's kind of good, kind of bad, or there's a positive and a negative to fighting him. The positive being he gets rid of diseases. So what if we turn that into an enemy? And the article talks about how originally they were just going to have kind of like the items that came with them, like the leeches and everything. And then the more that everybody at Red Hook kind of thought about it, the more they were like, we might be able to make this an actual enemy. So not only is it cool because obviously they were able to work with Make-A-Wish, but it's just cool. I think it's a really good idea. I love like Corrupted Biogland. I think is a good example. The trinket that every time your hero is hit, they get a 3-dot, and every time they hit the enemy, they get a 3-dot. I think I love when there's like a push and pull, like a big upside and a big downside to anything in a game like this, because it really requires you to consider everything when you are basically trying to decide, because you're like, oh, I gotta make sure that the downsides, the negatives are bigger than the positives. And I think that the Chirurgeon is a good example of that. I think it's just super cool that he helps you, but he also hurts you. I think it's a really tough archetype to like get correct, because usually it either turns into kind of a meme where the positive weighs the negative, or it's the other way around where it just feels bad. But there is a situation where if you have some bad diseases, you're like, I gotta go to the Chirurgeon, man. I gotta get rid of syphilis or cholera or whatever. And I think that's just such a tough thing to get right into a game. And I think Sam just had such a good idea. And the way that they turned it into what an interesting enemy. I mean, I know there's been some frustrations about from a balance aspect, but I think it's just like a cool enemy. Like he's just a dude that's doing some back alley lobotomies and stuff, and I think it's just a really cool enemy that they added to the game. But obviously the partnership with Make-A-Wish is really cool. But just in general, I think it's a great enemy, even if there wasn't the Make-A-Wish aspect to it. I just think it's a cool enemy. I do like the Chirurgeon a lot. I think it's really unique. This one, number 22, is about the Jester Spin. So Jester Spin, it's when you move him. So when you manually move him, he's got a whimsical little way of moving around. If you haven't paid attention, he does this like spin. So if you go to move him, he does that little spin. Here's it in kind of slow motion. But it's just a little thing. Again, it's a lot of times with indie games and stuff, it's just little things that maybe you think you overlook, or any people might overlook, but it's just a cool little, it adds to kind of the whimsy of him. The, you know, he's got the bells and everything, but he's also, you know, a murderer. Uh but it's just a nice little whimsical, you know, he's got this whimsical look. He's got the little jester shoes. I don't even know what those are called, the shoes with bells on them, but it's just, it's a cool little, just a little thing, gives him a little bit more personality as a character. And everybody's got their own kind of versions of this, but I just, the Jester Spin one is just kind of one that I wanted to highlight because I like. 23. I'm going to talk about the Leviathan in general. So, I think the Leviathan is a unique enemy in DD1 and DD2 in the sense that it's legit scary. Like, this Eldrich kind of Lovecraft sort of stuff is a lot of, obviously, like tentacles, first of all, but a lot of things like the Harvest Child, right? Where we have the Harvest Child, where you have this disgusting half human, half whatever kind of thing. But there's not a lot in this genre typically, or at least in Darkest Dungeon in general, that are just legit like horror movie, horror video game kind of look to it. But like, look at this. Look at it. It's got the eyes. It's got the no pupils. Look how jagged the teeth are. He's just got this like menacing look on his face. It's just all this spikes and stuff, just gross. And then we look at some of the animations. Like, this is a scary looking. This would scare the hell out of me as a kid. Now, I was kind of a pansy when I was a kid, but this would scare me. Just this, like, you know, eyes rolled back in the head or no pupils or whatever. Just scary kind of thing. But would show off a couple little animations here. My favorite one is last. So you get the, you know, right here, you got this like unhinge of the jaw, right? You got this just scary, gross thing. The way it kind of looks at the camera here. It's got the sideways pupils. You know, it's still kind of in agony. You see how big the jaw is. See this right here, the way that like the eyeballs shine and it just kind of stares. And it's just got this look. It's just this mouth that's just open, but it's still just super scary anyways and just pissed off. And so the one that made me mostly realize this is actually this right here. The Deep Rising, because Deep Rising, that's actually terrifying. Like, that's actually horror movie. The way it just comes in the camera, it's almost like not even attacking the enemies. It's almost like a fourth wall jump scare to try to scare you personally, kind of as the player. But it's just that is just pure like horror movie stuff right there. And that, I think that stuff, I think that you typically don't see that in a lot of Lovecraft sort of um you know, Darkest Dungeon sort of thing. But then just them, for them to add like a legit scary just horror aspect into this game and have it be the boss and have it be as big as it is. You know, if you think about how truly big that this enemy is, but I think it's just, they just did such a good job. I think there's a place for both. I love the Harvest Child, half human, half whatever, you know, terrifying kind of thing. I love the like the librarian where it's just like some fucking dude and he's just like pissed, and I love the horror. I love it all, but the Leviathan is such a unique enemy in my opinion from an art and from an animations perspective. Um it's just straight out of a horror movie. So, these last two that I want to end on have to do with shrines. So the first one is Jester, the second one is Flagellant. So this is stuff that you guys may not have seen in quite a while. But they're really, really, really well done. And I think one of the, I don't know what to call it. I guess one of the maybe, I guess sort of negatives is the fact that a lot of this game's storytelling and a lot of what makes this game great is in the shrines, which you only see once, obviously, unless you go back and play them. But what percentage of people go back and play them, right? So you have like Darkest Dungeon 1, like the fun of Darkest Dungeon 1 is in, you know, building your hamlet and going through these fights, etc., etc. So it's a feeling, and it's something that you can see multiple times. And this game obviously is still enjoyable in its roguelike sense, but I know what a lot of people loved about, you know, kind of like how Kingdoms is too, where a lot of people love having, you know, a soldier system and having this and etc., etc. But what this game really shines at, sorry, is in the storytelling. And this Jester Shrine, the Jester Shrine that everybody dislikes, including me, I got my ass kicked by this. It even took me 2 tries to get it right this time, but I want to pay attention to what's going on right here. So, as you're going through,
resentment upon instrument and crowd, playing the demoniac melody with unrestrained fury.
So on the surface, it really just looks like you're like, all right, it's just a mini game. You know, you're matching notes and everything. It's kind of it, just matching the notes. Like, you know, it kind of adds to the lore, and stuff. But you kind of don't think too much about it. So you got the death blow right there. So you're death blowing the notes or whatever, right? You did it right. No, it doesn't really matter. And then as you get into the third, so this is the very end of the third melody that you play. And I'll pause it. So again, you're just going through, you're just matching notes or whatever. But it's this reveal at the very end that I think makes this shrine. I would say this one, hands down, is one of the best in the entire game, because the storytelling in this is so good. Because it's so, you kind of let your guard down, right? You're like, oh, I'm just playing notes or whatever. You're also probably trying to concentrate not to screw this thing up. But it's this reveal here at the very end. Only on this very last one do you actually see the models. So this is essentially a reveal that the whole time that you were playing this melody and the whole time you were getting these death blow on the notes, you were actually playing as the Jester, killing the people at the party. His lore, if you don't fully understand his lore, long story short, at least in the way it's told in this game, is basically he was kind of puttering around. He learned a great song from essentially the devil, started playing around the devil, then he got invited to the king's palace, where at the king's palace, they basically just laughed at him and made fun of him and ridiculed him and stuff, and he snapped and killed all of them. So this, for what is on the surface level, just kind of playing some minigame and stuff, this little reveal at the end is so, like, it's cinematic, I'll say it. If you're and it's very subtle. You'll see when I play the rest of it. It's very subtle. It's just for 2 seconds or whatever that you see, and you're kind of like, okay, whatever. But this whole time, I mean, Jester's probably in the zone, right? Just killing these people with the way that he killed them. But this little reveal at the end that you, at the player, was actually killing these. You were the one killing the patrons of this party. It's just, and it just is, again, it's just like a couple of seconds, and it just goes away. You think you're just like killing notes. It's just such a good reveal at the end of this. Just, again, that's like, it's like a second and a half. That's all you see. But it's so good. And you hear the narration, and he talks about, you know, what happened or whatever, but you kind of forget, at least if you're not like full paying attention, or if you're full paying attention to something else, you don't really notice that, like, you just played this out. You just played this murder out. I just think, I think it's so good. They just absolutely killed it with that shrine. And it's a shame that, and I understand, it's a shame that the conversation about this shrine is how frustrating it is, because it is. But it's just so good. It's so good. And then this last one, number 25 right here. So this actually started with me wanting to talk about Sepsis. Sepsis, the animation, that's one that's very good, and I still will talk about that. But I decided, as I was kind of going through and thinking what to put in this video, I decided that I would watch the shrine again. And the way that they introduce Sepsis in the shrine, and death in general, by the way, is so good. So we start out, you know, you're fighting death. So notice you don't have Sepsis, right? You have all these abilities. By the way, Acid Rain weakens in this. If only it actually did that on anything other than Maniac. That would be broken as hell if it did. So but it would still be awesome. So you're defying death. You know, death gets her spawn in, which is just so good. You get this lack of color in the background. So you're just kind of fighting your girl without it. But notice Sepsis isn't on the bar. So as we get into it, Sepsis goes on the bar. You get it as a skill after you go Toxic. So this is the reveal that he does not go Resolute or Meltdown. He goes Toxic. At this point, he gets a lot more powerful. And this is the first time that you actually see... This is the first time you see Sepsis, the ability. So you see a new ability on your bar, and you kind of look at it. Extremely effective ability, obviously. You get a 50% heal, if only it was still like that. Obviously, that would be busted. But you get 50% heal, and you get a 6 blight. So off of you bouncing around, kind of like trying to heal yourself, doing some damage to her and stuff, she's resisting a lot of the blights. So as you can see, by the time I've gotten this in a round 3, the first time going Toxic, you don't do a lot of damage to her, and that's by design. You don't do a lot of damage. So as you're going through it, You finally get the sepsis off. This originally what I was going to talk about. So the mouth of him just like clenching, and then you just like sucking their life force, and this black hole that he kind of creates here. This is originally what I was going to talk about. Man, the way that they introduced sepsis, because I remember this. I remember that's one of the things I remember from the shrine is like sepsis feels like such an insanely powerful ability. So yeah, that's why I wanted to go back and look at the shrine. You get that. And then you fight her some more. You're more powerful now that you've gone toxic. And then at the very end, you get the sepsis to kill, which I think is this is really where you're like, man, sepsis is a crazy ability. And it's right here. You see it pop up. It's a guaranteed crit. It's a big heal. He's talking his shit. It's execution 3, and then you're fighting death for 6 rounds. At least for me when I did it, 6 rounds at this point. And you just vaporize her. And then this is the ability that you unlock. You unlock this after this fight. Obviously, it had to be, it couldn't be Execution 3, 50% heal in the actual game. But the way that they introduce this makes the Flagellant feel
gleaned from the world's
he's a
gruesome
superhero.
delights. His power was enough to defy death herself.
And obviously, it makes sense because you beat death. You won the game. He's never gonna die. You won the game. But it's just those 2 shrines are just so good. And again, I think it's one of the, I guess, I don't know, sad, I guess, kind of aspects of this game is that people people are gonna forget that because it's been so long for a lot of us since we've done the shrines. But man, these are just those 2 in particular are just so good. Those are my 25. Again, originally I had 50. So if you guys are interested in more of these, I could come up with so many of these and talk about them. Because I think this stuff is great. Again, this is the stuff that makes indie games awesome. And it's not that these AAA, game devs and stuff don't do it, but it's just cool that that this whoever did these animations were doing it because they care. Obviously it's a job, but they're doing it because they care also. This video was a lot of fun in general to make, and I love highlighting these kind of stuff, these positive things. I appreciate you guys all being interested. I appreciate you watching. I hope you will stop by my stream sometime. If you don't, that's totally okay. If you could leave comments, tell me what ones you like, subscribe, etc. Do all that stuff. I would appreciate it. And I hope you all have a nice rest of your day. And I got more good video ideas coming out. So I appreciate it. I hope you all have a nice rest of your day. Bye.